So I feel like there are really well-known signs for when something is really good. Like, have you ever seen somebody when they're listening to music, especially live music, and they make that face that looks like they've smelled something really bad or really smelly, but that is how you know the music's really good? Like, you're like, Have you ever gotten that face? I do that face all the time. I don't know why I do that. Or maybe you don't relate to that. Maybe you relate to the fact that whenever we were doing the video calls all the time. Some of our adults still have to do that for work. I'm so sorry, guys. And whenever you would go on, you would always check, hey, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Is my sound good? Are we okay? And they'll give you the thumbs up, right? I feel like that's the universal sign to know when something is good. Or, I know for me personally, I don't know about you guys, but you can tell when I really like a food because I'll do like a little dance when I'm eating, and I'm just like really excited to be eating good food, you know? I feel like, and I think that we can all generally agree or recognize when something is good, right? When something is, when something is just good. It was good. Good. Everybody say good. Okay, cool. I lost my train of thought, and that's why I kept on repeating it. Anyways, let's get back to it. So, guys, when God created the earth, God knew that the things like the light, the sky, water, birds, plants, and especially humans were all good things. We could see this in Genesis 1:31. It says, then God looked over all that he had made, and he saw that it was very good. So God was able to look around at the world and recognize and see and notice all of the various details in creation, that they were all good. And guys, we do the same thing. When we consider the world, when we look around in the world, we are able to notice when things are good, and we're able to notice when things aren't good, right? Usually, when we notice that things aren't good, we wish that somebody could or maybe would do something about them. Like when things aren't good, we can tell that they're a little bit off balance, that things aren't quite right. And it's exactly what it's like to notice injustice. Everybody say injustice. So when I say that word injustice, what comes to mind to you guys? What things? Shout it out. What things come to mind when I say the word injustice? What? Law. What? DC Comics. Unfair. What other things? Anything else that come to mind? Not nice. Those are really great. So why don't we start with some definitions here so we can all be on the same page. I think all of those were correct in some way, shape, or form, some more so than the others. So guys, let's start with the root of that word, which is justice. So justice just means something that is right, fair, or equal. So it's when things are good. Everybody give me the thumbs up. When things are good. So injustice is just the opposite of that. It's when things are not good, when they're not fair, and they're not equal at all. So when we talk about injustice, we're talking about the things in our world that are unfair, unequal, and not right. And now I think when it comes to talking about injustice, each and every single one of us comes to the table with different things. We come from different places. I mean, for some of you, this conversation isn't a new thing when you talk about injustice. And something came to mind the minute you heard that word. You could think of an injustice right off the top of your head. And now for others of you, maybe this is a different or really a new way of seeing things. I think everybody in this room can recognize the things in this world that can feel unfair, wrong, or difficult, right? Everybody's able to do that. You all are able to do that, right? Good. And guys, when you see or even experience things like that, you probably feel pretty icky. There's just this feeling you get, this sinking feeling in your stomach, the anger that makes you tighten your fists really hard, or maybe even the frustration that just leaves you feeling really devastated, or maybe even defeated. Guys, these are all signs of something you've seen or experienced isn't right. I think every single one of you in this room has felt that thing before when you know that there's something that's going on that just isn't right. So the real question that we all face when it comes to this topic is not, does injustice exist? I think we can all agree that injustice exists in this world, right? I think where it comes into play and the question is why doesn't somebody actually do something about all of these not good things in the world? And that's the question that we're going to be wrestling with for the rest of this series. Guys, what does it look like and whose job is it to do something about injustice? To help turn things from bad into good. And now, as we get started, I have to admit, like I said just a second ago, this conversation can be really tricky because of the fact that so many of us see and experience injustice in so many different ways. Because for some of us, for some of you, this feels really heavy. Because you've been thinking about injustice for a long time. Maybe that's because you've experienced it yourself. You've seen the way injustice affects your friends, it affects your family, it affects who you are on the inside and on the outside. Guys, this topic hurts for some of us. And if that is something to where you are feeling a lot of the heaviness of that, I just want to say I'm so sorry, and that those words can't actually make anything better, but I want you to know that here in Anona Youth, that we do not ignore things that hurt each other. That we want this to be a place, a safe place where you can not only talk about those things with your group, but also have a community that can surround you and lift you up and love you and be there to listen to those things that you've had to walk through that were not okay. And now on the other side, I think there's some of us in this room that have never experienced the hurt caused by injustice. Guys, instead, maybe we feel surprised by it. Maybe when you were younger, you've never thought about things like access to education, things like racism, or even food insecurity. And maybe as you're getting older and starting to see things on social media and other places in your environments, you keep discovering things that you never knew about the world around you, and they aren't very great, right? Maybe you've even found yourself asking the question, and when you're looking around, you're like, why doesn't somebody do something about all of this? Maybe you've even started asking some questions that you've never asked before. Like, why are there are some students that never get in trouble when they should, but then there are other students that always get in trouble even when they're not doing anything wrong? Or maybe it's, why do people still act like it's okay to make jokes that are racist, sexist, or ableist? And maybe the question is, if you don't know any of those three words, you spend some time in your small groups looking up what those are so that we can make sure we're not saying those jokes that are like that. Maybe you're asking the question, why does one person in our friend group go home to a house that feels unsafe while other of us don't have to worry about that? Or why are so many little kids in our community right here in Pinellas County who don't get to eat on the days when there's no school? Why do things like Pack-a-Sack have to exist? Why are 3 meals a day not normal for everyone? Now, guys, my point is this. When we see injustice through our own experience or somebody else's, it should make us ask some hard questions. It should make us start wondering those things. It should make us wonder how others don't see it, or maybe even when we look at ourselves, how we didn't see it before. It makes us ask, who will do something about this? And now let me ask you this question. What if I told you that the answer to that question, who will do something about this, that someone could possibly be you? That right now, as a middle schooler, as a high schooler, you have the potential to do something about the hurts, the wrongs, the unfair things that you see or experience in the world around you. That you can take the first step towards a better tomorrow, today and right now. And that's really what I want to talk about tonight. Guys, the good news is that we weren't the first people to really need a little bit of help opening our eyes to see the need for justice around the world. I think it was why Jesus spent so much time and made a habit of pointing out the things that people didn't notice before. So much of Jesus' ministry on earth when he was here was about helping people see the world through his own eyes, see people through his eyes. And so in the story that we're going to look at tonight, Jesus here is trying to help those who are listening understand that part of following Jesus, part of following God, means seeing and caring about those injustices in the world. And so he was doing that. To do that, he was comparing righteous people with unrighteous people. which really means righteous people were those who do good and want to help others versus the unrighteous people who don't want to do good and help others. And so this is the story that we pick up in here tonight. So this is Jesus talking. And when he says I, he means Jesus himself. So it says, then the king will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed by my Father. Take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry. So this is Jesus saying, I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. So then the crowd that Jesus is talking to, these righteous people, they answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger invite you in, or needing clothes and clothed you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go visit you? So I think the question that we're probably asking here right now is the same question or wondering that the people back then that were hearing this story is wondering. What the heck is Jesus talking about right now, right? So guys, we answers that through this last verse. So we'll pull up that next verse here. So Jesus says, the king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Friends, did you get that? If you don't understand what's going on, Jesus was saying that righteous people, the people he was talking about, see and look for ways to fight for injustice in the world. They care about the least of these. So when Jesus is saying the least of these, he means those who need the most help, feel the most pain, or get the worst treatment. So he wasn't actually talking to himself about himself. Guys, these righteous people recognize when somebody, not Jesus, but somebody in the world is hungry. They recognize when somebody's in prison or sick or just feel left out. They see the injustice in the way those people are treated, and they care. Now the question is why? Why do they care? Why go through all that trouble? It's because in caring for those who are being treated as less than or left out, they're showing that they care about who God cares about. They're showing everyone around them that they love the people that God loves, which is those people that are sick, that are hurt, that are in prison, that need help or feeling left out. You can name anything that feels like an injustice to you, and that is who Jesus represents and who we are called to help. Guys, Jesus is reminding us that his followers are called to look for people who need help, feel the most pain, or get the worst treatment. And whether you are a follower of Jesus or you're still trying to figure out this whole faith thing and you don't really know what you think about God yet, I think this is still a really important topic for all of us. Because we all want a better tomorrow, right? Right? You guys want a better tomorrow, right? Okay, good. You want the wrongs to be seen as right. Wait, hold on. You want all the wrongs we see to be made right? Yes? Okay, cool. We want the things to be fair, good, and equal for everybody, right? Okay, good. Guys, we want justice. That is what we're saying. And God wants justice too. And it just starts with one step. Or maybe in our case, it starts with one question. And that question is, where can you move towards justice? Guys, the truth is that there's injustice happening all around us all of the time. I know for many of you that injustice is something that's even happening to you, and that is something that you even still struggle with, and that sucks, and that shouldn't be. But the fact of it is that it is. Guys, no matter what our circumstances is, we are all in the position to take one step towards justice, both for ourselves and for the people around us. And that first step might just be simply following Jesus' lead and opening our eyes and seeing the wrongs that are, for what they are, which is injustice. We get to name those things as injustice. If you didn't know what injustice was before, my hope is now you do, and so you could start naming it. And so where can you guys move towards justice? I think that is something that is going to be answered differently for every single person. And that's okay. And so to start, I want to do a couple of things. So the first thing is maybe today you need to start by taking just one small, tiny step in the direction of justice. And so for you, that might mean opening your eyes to seeing the injustices around you for the first time, or maybe just in a new way. So guys, your first move might be to recognize the variety of wrongs in the world, and not just the ones that you've seen before or know really well. Be curious to learn what other people's experiences are. Pay attention to the way you feel when you see or experience things that are unfair or wrong. And don't turn away or close your eyes to it. Instead, maybe you could start by asking God to give you the eyes to see and the hearts to face the reality that there might be more injustice happening in this world than we've ever noticed before. And then maybe the second thing is others of you might be ready to take your next step towards injustice by speaking up or stepping in. So take time this week to consider what injustices you're witnessing or experiencing and come up with a few steps that you can take towards helping move towards justice in those areas. So if you're seeing injustice, it might be time to lean into Jesus' call as his followers and speak up or step into helping. Guys, when you recognize a wrong, what's one thing that you can do right now in that moment to make it right? Do you need help, or do you need to speak up or step into that situation? And if you're experiencing injustice, maybe your next step is to tell somebody about it, to ask for help if you can. Or maybe even you just talk to somebody about it so that they can be able to carry that with you and be with you so you're not alone in that. If you can, put a voice to what you're experiencing so it can potentially be stopped. And now I know not everything can be stopped, but maybe it's just that you have somebody to walk alongside you in that. And then the next step is finally, let me encourage those of you who are ready to take a big step towards justice. So think about the practical things you know and can do to move towards that justice. So let me ask you guys a couple of questions that you could ponder if you're ready to take that big step. So it's, what is the thing that breaks your heart because it's not right, it's unfair, or unequal? What is the thing that breaks your heart? Who is maybe that one person that you need to have a conversation with to take that next big step? Or what is your big step? And what do you need to do to take it? Friends, I am not asking us to come up with a solution that will end things like world poverty, racism, or war forever, right? I don't think that is something that we're able to do right here, right now. But I do believe that you, these incredible middle and high schoolers that are here in this room, could take steps together to move towards justice and to move towards a better world. Even if it's something small, it still makes the world better. And so friends, as you head out, I want you to think about this quote from Maya Angelou, who was a writer who wrote a lot about injustice often. And it's this quote right here. It says, "Do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, do better." So what I'm trying to tell you guys is that maybe you haven't thought or heard or known anything about injustice before this. That is okay. You are doing the best you can until you know better. But then once we know better, we have to do better, right? That's what this series is about. Learning more so we could know better and ultimately do more good.